three-storey building. Post-scale bulk and massing of development is considered appropriate in the local context. The building sympathetically steps up from this two-storey terrace to 3 stories. The building then steps up to a subservient cladded part of the building, which is 4 stories high, which is comfortable on the highway intersection and next to the surrounding buildings, particularly considering the 4th floor is sufficiently set in to ensure a level of subservience is maintained, and particularly so it doesn't look overly dominant when viewed from Menega Road and 2-story terraces. High-quality materials are proposed, and the material palette has been revised throughout the course of the application to help simplify the appearance and includes brickwork, stone coatings, timber windows to match the surrounding materiality, as well as high-quality modern signage for the code use. In addition, the proposal incorporates improvements to the existing street frontage, including the removal of existing drop curbs along both High Street North and Menega Road, and introduces new street tree planting and publicly accessible cycle parking. During the lifetime of the application, the Metropolitan Police Secure by Design team will consult on the proposed development and consider the proposal acceptable subject to conditions. As such, the proposed development is considered to provide a high-quality design and ensure safety of existing and future occupiers in accordance with the development plan for the borough and is therefore supported by officers. As it impacts on amenity, the proposed building, by reason of its bulk massing design, will have an impact on residential amenity of those living in the vicinity of the application site. However, taking into account its siting, fenestration, and sensitive design massing, reducing the top floors as much as possible, and the conclusion of a daylight and sunlight report, which shows that there will be no unacceptable impacts by residential neighbours. The impacts arising from the development proposal is not anticipated to be unduly detrimental from a residential amenity perspective and can be sufficiently mitigated. The environmental health team will consult on the application and have no objection with regards to the impacts on neighbouring amenity, subject to conditions requiring submission and approval of a noise, vibration and odour reports, including any mitigation measures to be installed prior to occupation of the co-working cafe use or any other fixed plant machinery identified as required as part of development. In line with the requirements of the local plan policy H3, a detailed management plan has been provided. The management plan provides sufficient detail on the residential population, management practices, and details on how neighbouring impacts will be managed, including the complaints procedure. Development will be required to comply with the details of the HMO management plan through the imposition planning condition. The condition requiring submission of a construction management plan prior to commencement of development, together with conditions ensuring no impact piling is permitted to take place without LPA approval, is also recommended to ensure the construction phase does not result in any unacceptable noise and disturbance to neighbours. The proposal is therefore supported in relation to impacts on neighbouring amenity, subject to compliance with the recommended conditions. In terms of sustainable transport, the application, as I said before, has a PTAL of 5, indicating very good access to transport modes. Given the high PTAL, it's considered appropriate for the development to be car-free, with the exception of disabled parking provision within the existing on-street parking along Menega Road, if and when required. It is considered necessary and appropriate for the applicant to therefore enter a Section 106 agreement to restrict the ability of future occupiers to apply for street parking permits, other than for the disabled occupiers, if there are any. Provision and type of cycle parking proposed is considered sufficient and appropriate for proposed uses. Full details will be secured via condition to ensure adequate provision for all potential users. And then the highways improvement works to reinstate the footpath, as well as to introduce the street trees, will also be secured via a Section 278 agreement, which we will secure the agreement via the Section 106 agreement as well, to make sure that they are carried out in agreement with the highways team. Also, LBN Transportation have reviewed the scheme and consider the proposal should also be subject to a travel plan. There was one submitted with the application, however, there was some details missing, so suggested a condition to provide those final details, as well as Section 106 obligations to secure monitoring and management fees, so that we can monitor and manage that travel plan moving forward in the future. With respect to all other above matters, as shown on screen, the proposed development is considered acceptable, subject to the conditions and obligations recommended as detailed on pages 77 to 83 of the committee report. Rebecca, the recommendation is now outlined on screen. Thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Is Cole Sungera in the room? If you've got anything to add, you have 5 minutes to speak. Start now.
Good evening. My name is Colin Singer. I dark pattern fabrics made from Green Street since 1970, although a few of you may also know me as the current chairman of the Green Street Trade.
You speak up, Cole, sorry.
Some of the councillors may know me as the current chairman of the Green Street Traders Association. One of our family businesses. As such, we've been liaising with Newham's housing department for many years. We are aware of the housing in the borough. importantly, have had first-hand experience in the challenges of tenants in different settings. We acquired the site many years ago and have tried to bring it back to good use ever since I destroyed the car repair business. In the meantime, we've been talking to and collaborating with our neighbours, the local charity called the Renewal Program, the church. On the site, and it's currently used as an additional community for the next 2 years, known as places. We believe the site offers a great opportunity to improve this part of High Street North and contribute positively to the neighbourhood. As mentioned, we have discussed a few ideas with Peter Lang, the director of the renewal programme. It's led us to think that an intermediate form of housing would be beneficial. To develop the scheme, the architects here tonight and the planning officers input, we provided useful scrutiny along the way. In essence, while the proposed building looks like a block of flats, this will be a new breed of HMO with a community cafe near the renewal programme. We believe this will be a unique offer to new home residents, the first really of its kind. The normal flats in the area are no longer affordable for many and only satisfy a fraction of the housing demand. Typical HMOs are usually perceived as cramped without any community amenities and in poor condition. They are usually built in converted terrace housing. Our proposal is to bridge the gap in the market and offer good quality, affordable stepping stone accommodation. Therefore, what we propose here is a purpose-built, comfortable living environment for more residents. The bedrooms are much larger than usual, bathroom, into a good quality hotel. Each floor offers a large double kitchen with a living and dining room. This is designed so that neighbours can meet each other without feeling with each other, share some time together around a dining table or a sofa, hence encouraging community bonding and social integration. The residents will have access to large communal rooms on the ground floor with a shared workspace and an adjacent laundry. There's also a large shared outdoor terrace on the second floor. You will also have the opportunity to access and engage in many of the training courses, activities, and club organised run by the renewal programme next door. Access to the cycle store, individual main boxes, all supervised by a concierge. Important to us, feel the residents in a friendly, supportive, and secure environment, making good friends and memories. To achieve this, we will ensure that our management and managers run the place with people's comfort in mind. It's everybody's interest that the new residents are harmony with the neighbourhood. I think that the proposed design demonstrates. Over time, we hope these good intentions will translate to reality, and to that end, the planning officers have ensured we provide evidence of the high quality build and services illustrated here. Through a legal and to a long-term commitment to management excellence. Therefore, I'd like to seek your support, and I believe you're excited.
Great, thank you very much. Are there any questions from members?
In theory, it sounds brilliant, and I think it sounds like it's one of the solutions that council has at the moment. But there are a few questions that I had in mind in terms with like, who are you reaching out to? Who are going to be the tenants in this property, and how long would the lease be? You talk a lot about it'll be affordable. What's affordable to you in comparison to everything else? And there's a bit around shared kitchen. Is that addition to people's own kitchen?
So, the shared kitchen is a communal space on each floor. So let's say there's 5 or 6 or 7 flats, they'd be sharing the same kitchen. As to your question about what is our ideal market, obviously when it's built, we'll find it. So from what my experience in new homes, there is, and from my talks with people that I know within the council, local, there's a gap in that you need to attract teachers, you need to attract the people that live in the local environment, work in the local environment. There's a lot of problems with them actually being able to afford housing in the area. So for me, the ideal market, obviously, it's a wide market, would be people, young professionals, undergraduates, come out somewhere, let's say university, on a starting wage. They cannot afford to take on a one-bedroom flat at £1,500, pay the council tax, pay that out of the wages that they've got. So where would they house? What would attract them to Newham? Do they live outside in Dagenham or, you know, somewhere else now to travel in with the travel costs? So there is a gap within the market where you get local professionals that can afford somewhere to live, work locally, be local. You know, that was my ideal target market. Whether we'll see how it pans out in the future, working with maybe the borough, working with local suppliers and finding out who they would ideally. I would pitch it more towards the youth, foster care and myself, see what happens with my foster when they leave and everything else. So there is a market for affordable income for where people can live. When we say affordable, you know, there'll be no, apart from the rent, there's no other expenses, you're not paying bills, like that. And it, you know, obviously there is a financial aspect to everything because it's going to be a cost to run. But we're hoping, as a legacy project for our own family, to make it so that we can offer this going forward.
Sorry, and I'm going to go back on it. I know there is a need for affordable in terms of social housing and everything else. But the question is, what's affordable from the rent that is currently being charged? By how many percentage are you going to charge less to residents or tenants?
Can't say that, you know, you've got a market figure where, so let's say you've got somebody, like I said, paying £1,500 for a one-bedroom flat, then they have to pay council tax and they have to pay a bill. By the end of it, they're talking about £2,000, right, a month, right, which could be £24,000 a year just in income to sustain it, but they're only earning 26,000 as a young grad somewhere else, so they can't afford to stay in Newham. If they were paying, let's say, all inclusive, let's say 1,000 or 1,200, 100, sharing as a couple, and you've got that much more reduction. But at the same time, as a you have to look at how much of our borrowing on it, how much are we going to spend on it. It's there, but we try to make it as affordable because that's our one. You know, it's not going to be my main investment, but and I'm not looking at it from a profit. You know, that we have to generate X amount. We have a lot of, thank God, as it is, and it's not like, you know, something that we need to do. It needs to be financially viable for us.
So,
I can't give you a figure because the market is the market.
so based upon what you're saying and what question Councillor Kamali has mentioned, there will be no discounts to the rent, but it will be at market rate.
Yeah.
At market rate.
Well, market rate.
How different is that to what's currently being offered?
The difference is that what they would want, so for instance, a young grad would have to look at taking a room in a converted house where they're sharing a bathroom facility. Okay. You know, and they're looking at the living conditions that they're living in, they're being offered a much better living condition. So you've got the opportunity to be living in, and let's say stuff like that affects people's mental health, affects people's, you know, the knock-on effect of that, because I see that on a day-to-day basis. If you want good quality accommodation, be living in a nice space and nice people that's enjoying their life, you know, there will be a much more positive person.
Thank you very much.
It's the aim.
I'm going to ask Councillor Lofthouse and then Councillor, do you have a question?
Yes, please. Unless Jane asks the question.
Could well be, because it's following from the same thing, two things really. Because the affordable rent is such an important thing. Okay, I'm not sticking you to a figure, but you did mention something like 1,400 a month. Was that,
I mean, looking at the current thing, you can between 1,000.
was that per person or per room?
We're doing rooms.
So two people, if they're sharing a room, it could be 700, yeah.
No, it's 1,000, you said 1,000 to 1,200.
Oh,
So that would be 600, but sorry, how many was used? But there's some of them are for individuals, aren't they?
Yes, there's.
I can't remember the quantity of individuals and couples.
We've got.
Oh, yeah, mostly it's the idea that they're for couples.
With the same as well.
Oh, okay.
Can I follow on again? It's going together. Is that one? Yes, because I may have misheard you. You talked about the shared kitchen. For how many rooms?
12 to me. That's quite an issue.
10 people maximum share a kitchen. So the kitchens are split in one shared space, and you've got the kitchens on either side.
Yes.
True, so that you can have 3 or 4 different groups or cooking at the same time without being on top of each other. So there are standards that we need to comply with to ensure that 10 people can share the kitchen, the dining room, the living room, and these are very large. These are very large.
And people.
Talking 36 square meters. These are much larger than anything you can find in converted HMOs in the borough.
So that's 10, could be 10 people sharing one kitchen.
Yes, so if you
I thought that was what you said.
draw your attention to the plan, you would see the layout illustrating how everybody
Stand up.
can
Thanks.
stay.
Yeah.
It's quite hard to see even even in our printouts because it's tiny.
Yes.
So I counted one and I thought I counted 12 bedrooms on one floor with one kitchen. This is part of my question. So you've got one kitchen which is two-sided, but for example, does that literally mean there are like just 2 cookers? So you're going to have, so you've got an issue in a way. If everybody comes home from work at the same time, you're going to end up with people, do you have to have a schedule for when people get in the kitchen?
But I
mean,
4 cookers,
Oh, 4. Okay, that's what I mean. So it's 4. It's not, so it's like 2 sides, but there's like 4 kitchen, 4 sort of mini bits.
The guidance that we follow has been set up through the London plan.
Okay.
They put that through, so we are applying.
Yeah, okay, that.
Standards for much higher facilities. This is, we're applying very high standards to a very small facility. So we've got the best of both worlds in a way.
Sure, I know what you mean. I suppose the issue generally is that most HMOs are in converted terraced houses.
Yeah, exactly.
And so sometimes you might only have 4 bedrooms and you might have individual people in those 4 bedrooms. So you've actually then only got 4 people sharing one kitchen. I'm not saying that's even particularly ideal, but all of yours have got their own bathroom, haven't they, effectively? So.
But in a way, we need to forget about the term HMO because 99% of HMOs are exactly the way you described it. This is a different kind of housing.
You're trying to do something that's in between effectively, because if you've got a room let's say you've got a room in a shared house, you're probably in this area looking at paying around the £700 a month mark. So that might be excluding bills. I let that room in my house and that person gets a bargain, 530 all inclusive. So
just to be clear from a technical building point of view, this is a brand new build, meaning that each room is treated as a flat. So the acoustic insulation between flats is the same as if between rooms is the same as if you were between flats. So you're not going to hear your neighbors argue or the TV or go.
Yeah, sure.
You will. It's highly insulated. It's never going to be a drafty space. You're not going to have to decide whether you need to put a heating or you need to feed yourself. This is not that type of space. So the added benefit of having a purpose-built space is also all these additional indicators of performance that applies to brand housing. That applies. And this is not something that will benefit if you live in any converted car, void of any calculations from.
What about, sorry, I was just thinking, because I'm just thinking of the logistics, you know, when you live in a space like that, I don't know how big the rooms are relatively. I mean, are you imagining that people have their own individual fridge in their own room? Because otherwise you've got that thing about sharing fridges with potentially 23 other people.
In the space.
Yeah, okay.
So you could have your mini fridge in your room if you want to, on top of the space that's already allocated for you.
Yeah. Go on. So how is that divided up in the kitchen? How would you propose it's generally divided, and how would you?
There's a rule about capacity.
Yeah, right, okay.
That needs to be provided in total. And then obviously some people are more greedy than others, you know, so that, you know, that's really the fine grain of the management, but that the final details of this will be laid out in the HMO management plan.
Come back to that. If you've got any further.
I've got one more. I just want to know, so how would that affect, because, and this might, I don't know, maybe James or someone else here can answer that. Let's say I'm unemployed. Surely even this kind of rent would be totally out of my realm of affordability, because housing benefit or the equivalent of would just not cover that kind of rent. No, what is the limit in the Newham area for how much housing benefit will pay? Does anybody know?
Might be side of our scope. No.
Okay, all right. All right, but I suppose it's just the interplay as a borough.
Get the whole.
We're trying to think about how anyone can afford to live anywhere
Yeah.
when there are those sorts of financial constraints. And I think that as a borough, we should have joined up thinking about these things.
Probably that we
Having,
can
you know,
and
ignoring it.
take back. Councillor Patel, then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. You know, most of the question have been asked by my
Sorry.
peers. I won't ask the question, but one thing I must say, you know, when you do the building work, when the development is taking place, make sure the disturbance is minimum. Because as you know, the area on the other side is a petrol pump. So most of the residents use this side of the pavement for Bonega Road, and there's a primary school there. So make sure when you do the building work, make sure the disturbance to our residents using the pavement, it's very minimum. We have to consider the school and the elderly and the disabled residents.
That's regulated also with the first planning condition.
Yeah.
On this. Look up to that, and with my experience dealing with your network management team on the highways team, don't worry.
Thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. And well, I welcome this development. This will lift that side of our High Street North. So I welcome this development. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mirza.
I welcome this development. I think it's unique and much needed in the borough of Newham. I know the normal HMOs, even if it's a 4-bedroom house, you end up you sharing one toilet and one kitchen. And some of the within the 4 bedroom, there are about 2 or 3 couples living in the house as well. And they generate a lot of rubbish which lies on our streets. And you know, so one thing I was gonna ask is this: you have a plan for the communal bins in the behind
section that there's waste stream management.
Yeah, so if you look at the top corner there on the ground floor, I don't know if you can see from here. It's very large.
yeah,
And because you've got a concierge, you know,
yeah,
one of the many items in the job description of the concierge is to make sure that this is all kept tidy. You know, and you know, the bins will be taken out only on collection day and taken back in straight away. You're not going to end up with your bins left.
that's very good. The other thing I was gonna say, as Councillor already mentioned, I think it should be offered and available to the people who are claiming the benefit as well. If they can afford the top up, you shouldn't be restricted only for the working people. I know you're encouraging the people to come in and work in the borough and live in the, which is a very good initiative, but I mean, it shouldn't be restrict those to only people, I mean, segregate people if they're not working or they're singling out those community who are claiming a benefit. You know.
And that from there's a run a lady agency and a cat.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, it has to be looking at liability of as well, but we discriminate in any sort of shape or form. But they are, it's not like a normal let where you get we've been stipulated that we have to give them 3 months. 3 months.
Okay.
And obviously issues out with that.
Thank you.
Councillor Hart.
Thank you, Chair. I really like the idea of, like shared working spaces and target area and all that. I think Councillor Member just mentioned that if we can bring communities, not only the working class, but who are aspiring to become a platform like working or something, if you bring those together as well, so they can get some ideas from different minds if we're already in that space. So that's the first question, if you have that provision. Second one, coming back to affordable rent, and my understanding about affordable rent is that it is 80% of the market value of whatever the market value of that particular area is. Have you made that formula in mind that, okay, we are going to get 80% of the market value, whatever it is at that time? And final question, we can answer together, please. I've also not noticed, but many caseworks or our constituents comes to us where they say that, look, we went there for tenancy and they're asking us for guarantor. And the second thing is 2 references. And not all of them have these kinds of, like guarantors they have, where they have some of them not willing to be a guarantor, first of all, because guarantor means like if they are not paying, they have to, they're liable to be paid. And not everyone have got those sorts of contacts. So you have in this provision where you're not asking for guarantors or let's say 6 months of advance deposits, things like that, because a lot of people, even they can afford monthly rent, but they can't afford these kinds of terms and conditions if there are any.
Okay, so the first question was.
Bring everyone together, even the non-working people.
Which is, I mean, look, yeah, my own background, I'm from Stratford School, right? I grew up in the area. I know the challenges as a child that we faced in this area. At that time, there were different challenges. I didn't go to university. My children never had the pleasure of going to university and living together. I know what it's like when you bring different minds together. I've learned of other people that learned of me. And that's the sort of environment we want to encourage. Also, as a foster carer, I know it's very important to be supportive of people and to get them together and expose them to different things. Right? As a society, we need to be exposed to more different cultures, different people, so we can understand each other better as human beings. So that's very important to me, as is. And it's, you can put inspiring messages in the building to try to educate people. Another thing is we've got the renewal program next door. They do, a lot of the financial advice. They do a lot of workshops and training. They do things like yoga. We have that support network right there, right next door to us, and we hope to take full advantage of that as well and get them involved. They also are doing things like mentoring stuff within the building. Okay, so we've already thought that's a very important aspect to me. And secondly, the question about you're talking about the
Affordable rent.
Affordable rent. be the 80% that, like I said, I'm not trying to be evasive. At the end of the day, we have to look at build cost and the financial viability of how much rent we have to generate from other parts to make it affordable, just to even pay the bank. Right, so that's an important financial aspect, but it's not as something like a ruthless landlord scheme where you're saying, right, you have to maximise our profits. Right, it's not down that road. We're looking at it from the point of what can we bring to the community? How can we best bring the community? And I'm welcome to the council to sit down with the articles if they pass it. Sit down and say, what can we help? How can we work together? So that's not a problem for me either. Thirdly, the third question that you was asking about giving the rents up front and deposits. Standard, I mean, to be what month was it? When we have landlords up for 6 months deposit, we don't even take. There'll be a certain limit to what people can afford. You know, if there's a 1 month deposit, secures it against, like I said, it's more than welcome. We know that people cannot dig out thousands of pounds in advance to go and live it. And it's not like, you know, we're living in the West End. You know, this is Newham. So we're living in Newham. I grew up in Newham. I know what it's like. I've got friends in social housing. I've got friends that live in Chigwell now. I've seen both ends of the spectrum. So I know what it's like and the struggle. The main aim is to try to get people to have a stepping stone. I don't envision people living there for years and years. Go there, be able to save the money, get educated, and have better lives. But it's a stepping stone that's needed in the borough, as I can see.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to bring in Councillor Kamali after. I've got just 3 questions around the co-working space, because that's quite an important area around it, and the disabled room. So, and is it the cafe you wanted to have in there? Let's talk of a cafe. So my first question around the co-working space, how do you envisage that working? Would it be fully set up for computers, or is it just a lounge in which people can just work?
To be honest, we would look in at from a commercial aspect to having it, because the renewal stores that they would love to have some sort of like Starbucks, like cafe, something next door to them where they could have meetings and stuff. So that was where the initial idea came from.
There's a co-working space linked to the cafe.
Space was advised by Lewis himself. Look, there's these models of similar to like WeWork type stuff. And I looked into it, and there's, you know, where people have been working from home, working in their bedroom, working in their, there's needs out there for people to be able to work, to go to an office type environment.
Yeah.
Some of the sort of professionals can get out of the house.
Sorry, if I may add.
You have to speak up just to discount.
The co-working space stroke cafe.
Yeah.
We discussed it at length with Louis, and the issue was, you know, is it a cafe first and then a space where you can work? As part of the planning policy environment in this particular area, you know, which is the micro business opportunity area, it was advised that it was better to go for a co-working space first with a small cafe to the side, you know, which means that passers-by can stop, have a coffee, sorry, but the main aim of this space is for people around to come and work for the day or have a meeting and so on. So it's about infrastructure.
Okay.
So these are not fitted. Everybody brings their laptop, and people can book a room for a meeting or have a session, you know, and so there are plenty of examples of co-working spaces, and I know that Newham has its own program to produce these, you know, so like Newham has the infrastructure itself, you know, to know what to expect from these co-working spaces. So, but the cafe itself is a small part. It's not the main part. It's more for the conviviality of it.
In terms of square feet, how big is your co-working space? Just so get an idea.
Co-working space is 125 square meters.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's about 80% of the floor area of that particular space.
Sure thing.
Only a few tables. dedicated just for the.
And in terms of the disabled rooms, that's my second question, because you've ticked off the cafe and the co-working space. You've mentioned about space and accessibility. Are those rooms larger in terms of larger hallways?
30 square meters, they are much larger, and they need to comply with the full criteria of accessibility on the Part M4 So
Is that the minimum space requirement, or is that
they are
beyond?
designed for wheelchair access?
Okay.
Okay, so you've got you may have people who just need a mobility scooter and can just wander around, and so there's a space for the mobility scooter outside, just as any secure space, and they can recharge there. If you are wheelchair bound, you can live there, and you can see those plants there on the ground. I don't know if you can zoom on that, Louis.
Yeah, I don't know
but
zoom, unfortunately, but the one.
They are designed to meet all the criteria of wheelchair accessibility, of that all the turning circles, all the extra width everywhere to make it happen. Yeah.
Okay.
The main thing is they're provided with their own private garden. They're all on the ground floor, so they do not depend on the lift that may be out of service and so on. So everything is embedded for them.
There's also storage as well for mobility scooters. So there was a kind of intent that if someone needed a mobility scooter, we could make sure there was somewhere to park it that wasn't then taking space up in your room, so that you kind of could still fully utilize it if you don't need it necessarily within your room, but you kind of need it for commuting or, getting around.
Okay. Councillor Kamali.
I just had two clarity questions, if that's okay. Firstly, it sounds like a hostel for working people, or is it available to, say, single parents with kids as well, or is it just aimed at professionals?
I wouldn't call it a hostel. Hostel would be more like a temporary sort of thing,
It's a kind of similar layout, no?
Not really. I wouldn't use the terminology hostel at all, because it's a completely different model now.
Yeah.
Okay. And as for single parents, I've been one of them as well.
Sorry?
I've been one of them as well.
But would it be available to them as well?
It's maximum capacity in one room is as it's two people. So, if that's a mother and child, that's not a problem. It could be a father and son, father and child,
And that's fine.
We wouldn't discriminate against them.
Cool.
It's not suitable for, say, a family, say a family of 3 or no, okay.
It's not designed for that.
Okay, and the second question, and I'm sure you'd appreciate that being the trader and the whole thing around car park and everything else, is that going to be a car-free kind of zone, or?
Allowed for cycles.
So there's anyone who has a car in that building won't be entitled to applying for a permit? Okay.
This is section 106 regulation.
Okay, no one's allowed to know, are they? And this might be a general thing, because lots of places just discriminate against people who've got pets. What would be the issue with pets? I mean, I know what. I don't know. No, but I thought that now hasn't there been a rule now that you're not allowed to discriminate against people who've got pets?
People need planning at least.
Yeah, but not
In planning, nothing to do with planning.
then later.
All right.
When
We don't have little cat and dog houses. No, okay, I'm just wondering, because as someone who's got pets and knowing people.
I had several pets.
outside of our scope,
Okay, so it's not,
outside of our scope.
I hope people won't be discriminated against if they've got pets then. Oh, yeah, obviously. If not,
It's actually granted, but nothing pets at the moment within our planning codes at least. Were there any further questions?
No, Chair.
No, so let's take it to the vote. The
Recommendation.
Local Development Committee is asked to resolve: 1, agree the reasons for approval as set out in the committee report, and 2, delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission, subject to the completion of a legal agreement under section 106 of Town and Country Planning Act and other items there. For those members who wish to vote for, please can I see a show of hands? Although, okay, council goes, abstentions, I record myself, and none against. So you have your permission. Thank you very much. We move now to item 9.
Chair, just, I know we've got plenty of time, but if office and you're happy, we can go with the recommendation.
Yeah. Officer, you happy for us to move to
No, it's up to you,
complete as read?
members as
I
well.
just wanted to give
Yeah, I mean.
the applicant
um,
online, he's made an effort to actually.
That's fine.
online, so I want to give them
It's fine.
opportunity, we can take it straight to, let's have it presented with
Yeah, yeah. No.
clarity.
Okay, yeah, Chloe, if you want to as per.
Yeah, so Chloe, would like to.
Yeah. Sorry, thank you, Chair. Yeah, item 9 relates to the application site at Clapton Football Club, at Forest Gate. The item relates to an application which would ordinarily be considered under the delegated authority of officers. However, because the application has been submitted by the council as the applicant, it is needed to be presented to and considered at committee. The application site known as Disraeli Walk is a footpath that connects Disraeli Road to the north and Upton Lane to the south. Clapton Community Football Club, which is a designated green space under the local plan, lies to the west of the site. The Spotted Dog Public House, a Grade 2 listed building and 2-story residential properties at MacArthur Close, is located to the east. The application seeks to widen and improve the footpath by replacing the existing fence. The existing site is composed of several types of fences ranging in materiality, including concrete, mesh, brick, wall, and timber, and height ranging from 2 to 3.75 meters. There is also an existing access point on Disraeli Road via a double-leaf metal gate and a turnstile entrance encased in the existing brick wall. The proposed new fence treatment along the football grounds will consist of a visually permeable metal fence with a height of 3.75 meters, reinforced galvanized steel V-fold mesh fence in color green. The proposal will also include replacement gates and turnstile entrances. 4 new trees and planting beds are proposed as part of the scheme. In relation to the proposed turnstile gate, the applicant explained that this is a regulation of the grounds operation governed by the Clapton Football Club. The existing turnstile is encased within the existing brick wall access on match days via the black door. As this brickwork will be replaced with the proposed fence, the turnstile will be set back with a gate made in the same style. The application also seeks to propose a side gate entrance from the alleyway. The existing access to the club remains unchanged. The entrance via Upton Lane serves as emergency services access only. Bullets on the entrance from Upton Lane have been provided to prevent vehicular access. In terms of the principle of development, the site is adjacent to a green space allocation. Planning consent is sought for the installation of a mesh link fence. The upgrade of existing fences to improve security would be supported in principle. For urban design and placemaking, the proposed fence will be 3.75 meters in height and will consist of 3-foot mesh fence in color green. As a result of the fence replacement, the footpath will be widened and landscaping will be provided to soften the boundary. The proposed fence is considered to be fit for purpose, of appropriate design quality, and would not appear incongruous within the context of the existing street scene or surrounding area. The proposed gates are considered to match the fence's height and style, and the positioning of pedestrian gates would ensure that site accessibility is not adversely impacted upon by the proposal. The design of the proposed development would not have any detrimental impacts to the listed building. The council's design and conservation officer and Metropolitan Police designing out crime officer confirmed that they have no objections to the proposed changes. The scheme is supported with regards to design, subject to condition. In terms of impacts to neighboring amenity, the closest neighboring residential occupiers are to the east and north adjoining Disraeli Walk. The proposed fencing, whilst taller in some areas than the current boundary treatment, would be sufficiently set back from neighboring occupiers to ensure any additional height would not result in any unacceptable loss of outlook, daylight, or sunlight. The proposal is supported in relation to impact to neighboring amenity subject to condition. The proposed development is exempt from biodiversity net gain legislation. And given the nature of the use of the site and its location outside of the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation Zones of Influence, there will be no significant effect upon the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation in terms of increased recreational pressure. With respect to the above matters, the proposed development is supported. To conclude, the Local Development Committee is asked to resolve to agree the reasons for approval set out in the committee report and delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant planning permission subject to the conditions listed in Appendix 8. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Craig, are you still online?
Yes, good evening, everyone. I'm here.
If you've got anything to say, you've got 5 minutes and you can start now if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight that this is a scheme that's been worked in collaboration with Clapton Community Football Club, which is a registered charity at the site. Newham Council's been working with the committee at the football club for the last 12 months to adopt land to improve walking and cycling access between the residential area to the north of Disraeli Road down and onwards to the south to support the growth of the business district on Upton Lane. Newham Council's recently adopted a large section of land to the west, which is included in this demonstrated in the application to facilitate the widening of this corridor, which will bring improved planting and the addition of CCTV, which will be monitored by Newham Council itself. This scheme is part of the wider Levelling Up Fund scheme that's been awarded to Newham Council by central government and is part of the wider Upton Lane improvements. That was all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm sure we've all read through the notes and we've taken officers' recommendations. Unless there's any questions.
Can I just ask one question? I mean, it's not about pets.
Nope.
I just want to ask about lighting, because obviously it's a corridor. You know, obviously what it's trying to do is create nicer access for people and safe access. What's the current lighting provision? And if it's not particularly good already, can that be addressed as part of this?
That's a very valid point. Thank you.
Because obviously if it's just putting in a fence, but there's no lighting, it's going to discourage people from going down there when it's dark.
Certainly, yeah. I think there's 2 points to probably respond to on that. Firstly, there are existing light columns in place in the corridor. The plan has been reviewed by the Highways Technical Board panel, which includes our lighting team. They've approved the level of lighting in the area and have also carried out a physical on-site assessment to review lux levels to ensure that there's sufficient scope for the lighting to light the existing and future plans. I think the second point would be in the removal of such hard impermeable surfaces in the existing fencing scheme, as you saw in the images earlier. There's significant closed board timber panels, concrete panels that make that area look narrow, enclosed and restrict the permeability of light. So there's a multifaceted approach to the replacement of the fence, which is a relatively simple element here. It allows people to see activity in the club as well as people travelling down the corridor to be seen, and will also allow additional natural light to permeate into the corridor itself.
One more, actually, just it's sort of connected because obviously, I mean, it looks lovely, but I'm thinking that obviously it's trying to encourage not different people, but people who would normally come to the club anyway. I just wondered, is there going to be any provision for people to bring their bicycles? I mean, because they probably can't bring them inside the turnstiles, but could there be some bike stands included somewhere? I don't know if there's space to do that as well.
Certainly. To be clear, this application is by Newham Council to reinstate the boundary walls because the club has granted us and allowed us to adopt land to make the corridor wider. So currently it's at about 2.5 meters wide. In places it will now extend up to 5 meters wide. That will allow shared space, walking and cycling to permeate from Disraeli Road down to Upton Lane. The club has an aspiration to provide cycle parking for visitors and patrons to the club, and that's something that I'm continuing to work with as a highways officer to assist them with within the curtilage of the club grounds.
Great, thank you very much. Can we have the recommendations back on screen, please?
Yeah.
Development Committee is asked to resolve 1, agree the reasons for approval as set out in the committee report, and 2, delegate authority to the Director of Planning and Development to grant plan permission subject to the conditions listed in Appendix 8, committee report, which we've all read. All those in favour, please show of hands.
Rather.
Yeah.
Fantastic, that is approved. The last item on the agenda is dated next meeting held on the 20th of October 2024. So enjoy your month. And we have closed the meeting.
Thank you.